So what we got, good morning guys. What we got today is introduction to sketching. And we'll try to create new part basically based on a new sketch. We'll try to add sketch geometry, then establish relationships, sketch relationships. This is the very important stuff, you know. I prefer you do not to get into modeling stuff until you understand your sketch quite clearly, because a lot of your techniques will depend on how good you are with the sketching. Okay. Because for simple extrusions and cuts, it will not really make a big difference, but when you go to your surface modeling and other applications, sketches makes a lot of sense. Okay. Even starting to understand the assemblies as well. Okay. Then we'll try to extrude the sketch. Basic features we'll try to do in a solid. Okay. Forgot to open up the PDF. See what is happening with once the sketch is drawn, where we are heading basically is using some of the features is being displayed here. A basic extrude, a basic revolve, and sweep and loft function. See, these are all based on the same sketch. The sketch you can see is two ellipses being joined, but they have been used differently in extrude, to a revolve, to a sweep, and a loft. Okay. It is easy to understand these two particular features, but a sweep is basically you're sweeping a particular profile along a path. Okay. And the next is a loft, is you're adding a surface, or you're adding a body between two sections, so you are filling some solid body. Okay, this is a loft feature. We'll try to do only the extrude in this case, because we want to make sure that the sketch and the sketch geometry and the sketch relationships are correct on the particular drawing. Okay. Then we can use some of these sketch states. What do you mean by fully, under, and over defined sketches? Always a fully defined sketch is a very good option for us. Then we'll see what happens with the under defined and over defined sketches. Over defined sketches will not allow you to make some flexibility in terms of making some design changes. Okay. So we'll avoid that. Underdefined is also, it will be loosely defined on the model space. Sometimes it doesn't know where the origin is, so it creates a lot of problems later when we keep on adding your sketches. So we want the sketch to be a fully defined sketch. Then we'll use some of the sketch tools which often involve trimming, extending entities. See, you have to understand from simple lines, rectangles and circles, as you combine them, they become entities. These entities, once combined, you can cut, copy and modify like a normal text, something like that. So entities is something new, might be new for you, you might not use in AutoCAD. Then once the sketch is defined, then we can move that 2D sketch to a 3D solid feature. Okay. The first few things in these pages is has been done already for you in the first lesson, how to create a new part. Once open up a new part, selection part, giving a name and saving the file. See, most importantly, what happens is that what profile you're going to draw is determined by the solid itself. Okay, it's very clear. This particular solid, whatever you're seeing, has couple of holes, cuts, and some solid base as well. Okay, so depending on the type of the profile, we can start drawing your base sketch. So that determination is very important. But determining the profile, apart from that, you also have to determine which plane you're going to insert the sketch. Those are the key things. Determining the plane, determining the sketch profile for your part is the first thing that you have to do it from your design intent. Okay, so once that is decided, then we can start drawing the sketch. So in this case, he has opened by default, which is a trimetric. Then he has used the front plane. In the end, we are trying to make this particular profile. Okay, then we'll add the relationships. Later we'll make that sketch fully defined. You might now, so far you might have also understood when you open your sketch, how you exit the sketch, how you make the changes save permanently on the sketch. But with the sketch geometry also, you already seen different sketch entities like line, circle, perimeter circle, 3-point arc, tangent arc, 3-point arc. Because depending on the sketch profile, we tend to select a particular sketch entity. Is open, part is open. Your sketch, as soon as it becomes normal. The sketch entities are here. We can draw a simple line starting a circle, inserting a circle, snapping the center point, and basically inserting the circle and fixing the radius here. Okay. But things like when you're drawing the polygons, there is a difference between an inscribed circle and a circumscribed circle. Okay, when you're inserting, you're basically giving for this particular entity number of the sides, and that would be enough, and just choose which is a circumscribed or inscribed circle. So I'll quickly show you snapping the origin and drawing the hexagon. This is an inscribed circle, so you're defining the tangents. These are basically tangents, and as soon as you join them, then it becomes a pentagon. In this case, it's a 6-sided pentagon. But when you're inserting the pentagon itself, the new pentagon, you can change it to a circumscribed and an inscribed circle. See, you have to understand that this makes a difference in the diameter of the circle. So this is the diameter 104, previously it was 90. Okay, so this diameter makes the changes depending on the number of circles you're trying to insert. Pretty much some of these are pretty much standard. Center point arc, tangent arc. If you want to draw, there is already an existing line. If you want to extend that particular line to an arc, you can insert a tangent arc, or you can draw your own 3-point arc. I wanted to show you things like even fillets in the sketch itself. You can undermine the fillets. You don't have to go into your created and insert fillets, because sometimes when you interpret your drawings, you might get tempted to put a fillet in the sketch itself. That doesn't make a big difference. You can do it. and this is what the options you have. But I want you to look into the options like splines as well. Spline is a random curve you are inserting. Then what you're doing is you are changing its profile by dragging and dropping, basically using your pointer. You can try all of these on your sketch quite quickly, because you'll come to know where these sketch entities are lying, and as required we can insert them on the sketch. Okay, as you press escape, your pointer will be lost. Then again you got to select a particular sketch entity. You can also insert a point, but you can draw your splines also by equation driven. Okay, say for example, if it is an explicit, this particular equation is say 3 multiplied by x plus 5. Okay, I can put the parameters here, say for example from -10 to +10, say, insert. So it draws a line for me. This particular line is actually equation driven. Okay, to draw a line we don't need to draw an equation, but if you are drawing an entity to an entity relationship based on an equation, then this is what we are going to do. Okay, even for gear profiles which look like involute profiles, which are convex, concave shapes, but they have a certain equation to follow, we can insert the equation here. Once the equation is inserted, when you put your limits for that equation, it will keep drawing the lines. Okay, so or the curves. Okay, now you can put your quadratic equation, parabolic equation, hyperbola equation, whatever it is, and you can draw them. Okay, rather than inserting as a standard entity. Next, I'll just delete this one, we don't need it. So this one is asking you to use a front plane. Sorry, we are already in the front plane. Is asking you to draw a simple profile. I'll quickly draw that profile here. So selecting a line, starting a line here, and snapping your origin point, then drawing this vertical line. Then he is asking you to insert one more line which is at an angle. There's no particular angle at this case when you are inserting your sketch, just to snap some point, random point. Then again you want us to move perpendicular to the line 2. Okay, you snap somewhere in the model space. Once it is snapped, you wanted to draw a parallel line to an existing line 2. And we also want to maintain a coincidence relationship. For example, in this case, I want that particular snapping point to be also in the same collinear arrangement with this point here. Okay, so this is where I'm snapping it parallel, and also it's collinear with the point, with the vertex point somewhere here. Once drawn, then you can move further to snap it to a coincidence point which is horizontal, then one more vertical line. Okay, so once we close this one, you can simply press escape. Even if you randomly try to press escape, your pointer is lost, you can always go back to that vertex point and keep drawing it. Okay, so as you can see, there are a couple of lines which are black and some of the lines are blue. What does it actually mean to you?
The black lines are fully defined?
Yes, these two lines are fully defined. Perfect. These lines are not fully defined. Okay, because basically it has got an origin point, and it knows the relationships, which is a vertical and an horizontal. You can display all the relationships by clicking here, display relationship. This will show all the relationships which are in the current sketch. Okay. If you wanted, you can delete all of them and add new relationships. Okay. So in this case, I can delete all of them. I can keep adding them. I wanted. This is mostly a custom defined. As I deleted all the relationships, what happened to the sketch now?
They're all undefined.
They are underdefined. Okay. So you got them into a blue. Black is best on the sketch. Okay. So now I'll add relationships. I'll make this particular line horizontal. As you can see, it will give you a few options in terms of as you snap your line. Definition is given here as a line 1 always. Okay. Then I want this line also to be vertical. I have to go into add relationships, select this particular line. As you snap this particular line, you need to make it vertical. Okay. After making this vertical, I don't want to touch this particular line. I want to leave it certain angle to this horizontal line. But I can define this particular line, display relationships. There are no relationships here. I can select this line, line 3, which is basically perpendicular to line 2. So I need to select my line 2 as well. Equal and fix. So it is highlighted with a few options with a bold. So this line, actually this line 2 should be perpendicular to line 3. But I remove relationships. I am adding them to show how we can clear the entities, select them, add your own relationships. So in this case, it should be parallel. Relationships are numbered. You must understand the numberings as well. They are numbered, and they are coming with a sign here, which is saying a parallel symbol. This is a perpendicularity symbol. Okay. Then I want this line to be horizontal. Okay, so I can make this one horizontal here. Done. Okay. Still my sketch is underdefined. Okay. What it needs is the dimensions on that particular sketch. Okay. But before we go on to dimension that particular sketch, I want you to look at the sketch profiles commonly we define. So this is what it is saying about the sketch status. Underdefined, sketch is inadequately defined. We have seen that it will be highlighted by blue, okay, which is an underdefined sketch. Fully defined sketch has a complete information. Fully defined geometry is black by default. As a general rule, when a part is released to manufacturing, sketches within it should be fully defined. Okay. Overdefined sketch duplicate the dimensions and it conflicts. If you want to take an advantage of the parametric modeling, your sketch has to be under the limit of fully defined. If you overdefine it, it will restrict its flexibility. Okay. So extraneous dimensions and relationships should be deleted. You can do a lot of time, you can do trial and error in terms of sketch. If it is overdefined, you can go and suppress some relationships, then again add relationships by making sure that the sketch is fully defined. I will tell you later also, by one click of a button, you can make your sketch fully defined. I don't want you to go to that shortcut option quite quickly. I want you to understand first how we make the sketches. Manually resolve the problems. Once you resolve manually, then we can show some shortcut, because later you will be drawing a lot of sketches quite quickly. Then we have to see some governing rules of the sketches, because sketch has to be a close counter. This is important. The keyword is a close counter. We can have multiple counters. We got a circle with a rectangle, that fine. You know, when you are trying to extrude this particular sketch, it will take this as an open, that will add as a cut, and it will make this one as a solid. Okay. You prefer not to keep this open encounters. We can use this open encounter, for example, for sheet metal. It's fine. Okay. And also sometimes your corners are not closed. You'll see that quite often in the initial sketchings, your snap point looks quite close to intersection, but it will not be. There will be a very small distance. An extra line is added, then you got to trim that particular line. I'll show you how to trim that line. Then you got your self-intersecting counters. This is still fine. This is a multiple body. As you start closing your sketches, then it will become a multiple body. Okay. You can see here multiple body, but they are not connected. This is still appropriate, but they would recommend not to do these particular disjoint sketches. Always draw any disjoint sketches in a separate planes. Okay. And you can always use your shortcut options, redo, undo options, Control Z and Control Y. Sketch relationships, horizontal line. This is what we already done, putting a right angle, and we also need to define in this particular sketch the relationships, the angle, driving angle, the distance has to be defined. Then you got to have a relationship here, then the overall length. That will make the sketch fully defined. So I'll go back to the part itself. So in this case, I want the overall length and an angle. So in this case, I'll go into my smart dimensions. I'll snap my horizontal line, and I will be snapping my line 2. Snap, I'll get an angle definition. I can change this definition here by making, say, for example, 30 degrees. Once this is this particular point with which is giving you the overall length. Once the overall length is, you can again fix it by inserting the dimension in the. So define this particular length. So I'll go and snap that particular length. Sorry. And I'll define this one to, say, for example, 30. There are different lengths given to you in the book, but I'm quickly going to this particular. I can always see here I'm moving my origin as well. I'm snapping it at different vertex points. As long as the profile that you wanted, you are happy, you can release that one. But the other thing in this case, my origin, see, I snapped it. I did not snap my origin point to this vertex point. Again, for this, I'll go into my relationships. I'll select this origin, also snap this vertex point. I'll make this coincide. As soon as I make coincide, for these two lines, it becomes blue. Fully define your. Then also you need this dimension here, say make it 40 here. So again, this particular line, because knows what distance from the origin. then this length as well. So I'll go into selection of this length. Say for example this is 65. So that is what all required. Now my sketch is black. I know different vertex as define them, the sketch becomes black. Now define. It's ready for extrusion. It's ready for adding features. You can see the icon here. As I exit my sketch, the sketch will become the icon will become, there is nothing here, but if I go back into edit my sketch, say for example I remove my dimension and exit my sketch, it comes with a open bracket and a close bracket icon here. It is under define. Again, if I'm going to my sketch, I this dimension, the is fully defined, and I keep on adding dimensions. As I keep on adding my dimensions, it becomes over-defined. It says over-defined here. I can accept this sketch. If I exit my sketch, okay, it comes up with a problem sign here. Warning: the sketch is over-defined. Consider deleting over-defined dimensions or relationships. Sometimes relationships also will be over-defined. It's not just the dimensions within the sketch. Okay. So these observations, these are very subtle things which will happen by a click of mouse. You need to be very careful what happened and where we can go and troubleshoot the particular problem to make the sketch fully defined. Later in the PDF itself is asking you to look at sketch relationships. If you are joining 2 points, it's basically a coincide. You can merge 2 points. What is the definition of parallel lines? We can add a relationship between 2 lines being a perpendicularity, collinearity, horizontal. Between the lines, you can add between the endpoints as well. In this case, they have added it horizontal between the 2 endpoints rather than 2 lines becoming horizontal here. You can define the same for vertical lines. They became vertical, but you can have 2 endpoints of 2 different lines to be vertical as well. Okay, so you can make the lines equal, means the dimension length is equal. You can make your circle diameters equal. You can use a midpoints also to add relationships. Okay, so that is what your first lesson is. I think based on this understanding, you can start your exercises. I'll again repeat the same once I close this